Greetings, everyone, and welcome to ION Africa. My name is Awasar. I'm Assistant Director for Academic Affairs at the African Studies Center, and ION Africa is our bi-weekly seminary series. We're very happy today to have Dr. Miriam Chule as our guest speaker. And before I pass it over to her, a brief introduction. Dr. Miriam Chule is a researcher, lecturer, and the head of the Department of Agricultural Education and Extension at Egerton University in Kenya. She holds a PhD in agricultural education, specializing in curriculum development, pedagogy, and educational measurement and evaluation. Her expertise lies in designing and developing training materials for both formal education and extension services, making her uniquely positioned to bridge research, learning, and farmer outreach. Dr. Chule has extensive experience in participatory training, farmer engagement, and community-based agricultural education. She has worked directly with schools and smallholder farmers on food systems and climate change adaptation. And I believe you are here with AAP as one of the fellows. So we are very happy to have you here and welcome you.
Thank you, Hawa, for that introduction. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry. My name is Dr. Miriam Chule. A good introduction has been done, and I belong to the Department of Agricultural Education and Extension, Egerton University, but currently at Michigan State University under the program for Future African Leadership Scholars in the leadership program in the 5th cohort, supported by the Alliance for African Partnerships. This is the work that I've been doing, and this is only a part of it. I'm going to share the preliminary findings for this work. I've been working with my two mentors, Professor Susan Wach here at Michigan University State, and Dr. Miriam Charimbo from Egerton University in the Department of Crops, Horticulture, and Soils. So the title of my study, the presentation today is From Skills to Prosperity. How can we reposition Kenya's TVET training to economic development? And before I dig deeper into this presentation, I want to share my footsteps this far. It's always good to reflect back and see the journey behind you and also see the wide mirror that gives you the future and the tomorrow that is broader and brighter than where you've come from. I am brought up from a humble background. I grew up in one of the arid and semi-arid counties of Kenya, Makueni County. And the first image here shows, let me see if I can get my pointer. Sorry. Yeah, this image here shows a representation of where I grew up. Our county is dry, rarely gets rain, the land is degraded. And so that's where I came, I grew up in. And we neighbor the Tsavo National Park that hosts a number of the big five, the elephants, a majority there, the lions and many others. But I'm key on this because many a times when we grow our hard-grown crops, they visit us sometimes and then the story is not very good. But of curiosity are these other animals that had to be evacuated so that where I went for my high school, we could get a dormitory to be spending our evening. So that is the nature of the environment I grew up in, and sorry, I'm seeing I'm muted.
No, you're not muted. We can hear you very well.
I am muted. I don't know why I'm muted.
You're not muted. We can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Uh-huh. So after my high school, where we had this kind of an environment, these animals would still visit us during lunch hour and in the evening, because that was used to be their environment, and it took time for them to move away. Then I transited to Egerton University, where I cleared my bachelor study in 2009. I joined my master's in 2011 and cleared in 2013. And in 2014, I enrolled for my PhD, which I graduated in 2017. Within this period, I did my early career fellowship in 2017 in Stellenbosch University. And I appreciate for those opportunities. And now these are now opportunity, besides the many others, to be here at Michigan under AAP. A brief history about Egerton. Egerton is one of the oldest institutions of agriculture education, and it has been in place since 1939. And in 1939, it was initiated by Lord Maurice Egerton of Tatton, who began it as a training for the white settlers in matters agriculture to be able to perform better in the farm. But in 1950, it was promoted to an agricultural college. And then later in 1986, it became a constituent college of the University of Nairobi. And in 1987, a year later, it became a full-fledged university. As we speak, currently, Egerton has 10 faculties and 2 directorates. It's always good once you visit Kenya. Those that have not been in Kenya, visit this institution. It is in Nakuru County, Kenya. So back to my presentation. I'm going to give this presentation in the following outline: the broad background of technical and vocational education and training, the landscape of this training in Kenya, the learning benchmarks. I'll give the methodology that I used, provide the preliminary results, and then the conclusions. Why the technical and vocational education and training institutions? I am convinced that these institutions are well positioned to catalyze inclusive economic growth. And as we look at this, I'm also looking at it from the lens that we have a huge unemployment rate in Kenya that stands at 67%. And these institutions offer programs that run from 3 years to 2 years and 1 year. So I'm also looking at it from the perspective of the time taken, that within a shorter period of time, you're able to channel out graduates that can fit in the world of work. I'm also looking at it from the diversity of the programs that are offered. And this really pushed me to want to scrutinize the progress that TVETs are making in terms of training graduates who are able to participate in economic development. And therefore, being a curriculum developer and also a trainer for a long period of time, we cannot really ignore the quality of the training that is offered in these institutions if we are to make them participate actively in economic development. What is in these TVETs? I'm looking at these institutions as holistic institutions that not only offer training, but also they equip trainees with the skills that they require, the competencies they require, and how do they do that? They provide an interaction between the trainees and the industry, and they also provide the practical aspect in what they train, which gives a whole set of what a trainee that is competent to fit in the world of work requires. So at the end of the day, they become specialists in certain areas, and they also have an opportunity to continue growing and getting better in the fields of study. So it's lifelong, it is developmental, it gives them a career, and they also become professionals. When I talk about the technical and vocational education and training in the TVETs, I'm sure in different contexts, these institutions are referred to differently. Here in the US, they are called vocational institutions or vocational training. But for us, we have the aspect of the technical bit in it. So I'm referring to one and the same thing. But I want to look at the diversity in what these institutions offer. And it is important to appreciate that looking at the images I have casted here, these are only a few of the representations. You'll have technical and vocational education and training institutions that are offering engineering programs. These engineering programs could either be electrical engineering, civil engineering, or even mechanical engineering. You'll have those institutions that are offering beauty and therapy, for example. You have others that would offer fashion and design, as indicated there, and many other broad perspectives of TVET training. But most importantly, my focus was agriculture, and that's why I could not miss agriculture there. When these institutions are being set, there are a number of things that we need to be cautious or we need to look at. The environment where they are located highly determines the kind of programs that will be offered. If I am to train agriculture, the resources I require are totally different, and they require different spaces in terms of land or the space that they require compared to someone who is doing beauty and design or tourism and hospitality. So the environment is a very key factor to determine the viability of a TVET, depending on where it's located. Then the resources. There are those training programs that will require heavy resources. There are those that you can run with lesser resources and lesser space. And it's also important we appreciate that in these TVETs, we have different entry learner behaviors. There are those trainees who will join the TVETs after their grade 8 or class 8. There are those who join after their Form 4. There are those who dropped off school midway, and they also join in those TVETs. And it's important we get to know whom are we training, what level are they at, so that then we know how to handle each of the categories adequately if they are to acquire the skills and competences that they need. There are success stories across Africa that Kenya as a country can learn from. And Mauritius has taken the lead with 54% of her population having technical and vocational skills. We have Egypt, where literature indicates over 60% of their learners transit to technical education training. Then Zimbabwe has 40% of their population having taken these programs. Zambia has 37.5%, and most of the African countries, Kenya included, their percentages lie below 20. So it is always important to benchmark and see what these countries that have really succeeded have done differently than we have done. Just a brief presentation, a background of Kenya. We have 47 counties in Kenya, but I'm interested more so in the agroecological conditions that are represented in Kenya. And you notice that in this second map on my right, a larger section is colored red, and that has a meaning. Then another section is colored as a background of yellow. And Kenya has over 84% of these two portions represented by two colors, representing the arid and semi-arid counties. So they take the huge chunk of land, and looking at it, it is important to be asking oneself, how can TVETs really contribute through the agricultural programs that they are training to ensure that food or agriculture can be conducted sufficiently and effectively in these lands that are not well supplied with the weather conditions and other environmental conditions that they need for crop production. However, for this study, I carried it out in the high potential areas in 3 counties that are regarded as the food baskets for Kenya. And these counties were Nyandarua, Nakuru, and Kakamega. And the reason being, them being food baskets for Kenya, producing the staple food, which is maize, how are their ag programs in TVETs aligned to training these graduates efficiently to continue perpetuating what has happened well in those counties? TVETs are anchored on several tenets that we need to appreciate. They are not hanging somewhere. They have a foundation, a very strong foundation that should keep them going so that they achieve the goals that are expected of them. And one of the tenets is the Agenda 2063, the Africa that we want. For Kenya to participate towards achievement of this agenda, then our TVETs must produce graduates who can fit in the economic sector and be productive. Because we're looking at an economic sector that is friendly, an economic sector that will improve the living skills, living standards of all the people. Then we have Vision 2030, that is as 3 pillars that are to be onto which it is supported or it is anchored: the social, the political, and the economic pillar. And these pillars, there is a position for the TVETs to play a role to ensure that whatever graduates they are releasing into the world of work, they have the skills that they require to propel the economic pillar and also the social pillar. Then we have the Sustainable Development Goals. We have goal number 1, no poverty. If we empower the youths through TVETs, then we decrease the level of poverty in the households or in the counties. We also produce sufficient food, and therefore we are contributing towards zero hunger. We're also contributing to goal number 4 that talks about quality education, because we want every Kenyan child to have access to quality education. And then goal number 8 that talks of economic status in terms of what am I getting in returns of what I'm doing. In the context of Kenya, TVETs are anchored on the Big Four agenda, which was pushed by the previous, our previous president, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And this Big Four agenda had 4 key pillars that they wanted to promote, but most importantly was to transform lives. If you transform lives, then it means people are having enough food, people are having better living standards, people can access good health care, and that can only be achieved if people are financially stable. So it all begins from the training institutions. And lastly, we have the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, the better, by our current president, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. And it's good to appreciate, looking at these pillars, agricultural transformation takes the lead. And he also has a passion towards digitalizing every sector and ensuring that the youth are empowered in terms of digital literacy. TVETs in Kenya are governed in a structured way, and they are all anchored under the Ministry of Agriculture. But below the Ministry of Agriculture, TVETs are set under the Technical and Vocational Education Training Authority, the TVETA, and also the Kenya National Qualification Authority. TVETA regulates and ensures accreditation of the programs that TVETs are offering, and also accreditation of the institutions that are offering TVET training. And then previously we had a challenge where when you join the TVET training, it's like you never progress in terms of acquiring higher levels of education. But when KNQA came on board, we now have a framework that guides how these trainees can transit to the highest level of training. And that is a real achievement. However, besides these 2 institutions, we also have the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. This is the service, this is an institution that ensures that every institution that has been accredited has trainees in the programs that have also been accredited. So they place the students into those institutions. Then the Curriculum Development, Assessment and Certification Council has a responsibility of developing the curricula for these TVETs and also setting up the assessment and certifying these students. We have the Kenya National Examination Council. They may not be directly directly linked to this, but they have been conducting the assessment for the TVETs for the longest time. But since 2013, Kenya National Examination Council assessment has been gradually being phased off from the TVETs so that CDAC can take over competency-based education training assessment fully. And therefore, with all this background, it's important to appreciate TVETs have a place in Kenya because of the potential that they possess, their ability to empower the youths with skills, their ability to contribute to economic development, their ability to alleviate poverty, and their ability to provide or create avenues for youth employment. And as I mentioned this, I also need to, looking at this unemployment crisis in Kenya, it's also important to appreciate that every year, Kenya releases over 600,000 graduates of high school and primary schools who never join any other form of training. So those youths are somewhere, not joining the universities and not joining the TVETs. And we have had an accumulation of that. By 2023, we had 4 million of them that are not trained in any form of formal skill. And that raises a concern that something needs to be done. And this is the aftermath, much as the protest by the Kenyan Gen Zs in 2024 was about the financial bill. The underlying factors are true, that there is much more than the financial bill. These youths need to be engaged. If they were engaged, I'm sure they wouldn't be on the streets. So to unearth this, I have a research question that guided this process to determine the status of training of agricultural programs in Kenya's TVETs. And I did this through a mixed method approach where I conducted desktop review. I had surveys with both trainers and trainees and focus group discussions. These surveys with trainers and trainees were only conducted in those institutions that were offering agriculture programs in the counties that I had mentioned. The literature review was done across the challenges that face agricultural TVET training, the support that the government has offered these institutions this far, and the institutions that offer ag programs and the programs that are offered. Then the survey and focus group gave data on the enrollment, the alignment of the curriculum to the labor market, and also technology integration. So from the literature review, it was clear that we're still struggling to overcome a number of challenges in terms of TVET training. And some of these challenges are attributed to the stigma. For a long time, TVETs have not been appreciated as the very best training institutions for someone's career because we have a mindset that TVETs are meant for those that never did well in their high schools or in primary schools. So they are meant for the failures. They will not give you a quality diploma or certificate that is appreciated. So we've had this issue of the stigma, and this is something that needs to be overcome. Then fees or the charges that are paid in these institutions were also a challenge for quite a long time. Enrollment was a challenge, of course, because of the stigma. Not many trainees would want to join TVETs. And infrastructure was either absent was missing in these institutions, or that which was there was obsolete, and quite a lot needs to be done. Job opportunities for the TVET graduates were a challenge, and many times when they got the jobs, then they faced pay discrimination. And with all this, the government has acknowledged that something has had to be done for us to rewrite the script differently. And out of this, then they have offered support towards TVET training. And I want to just go through the different types and actions that the government has taken to bring back TVETs so that they can actively contribute to economic development. In 2013, the TVETs were to be rebranded. So a TVET Act was passed to ensure that there is rebranding of TVETs, and they were to be rebranded to ensure that the enrollment rises, and the target was set 20% by 2030. A follow-up needs to be done to see whether that will be achieved. 2030 is only 5 years to come, not very far. Then we have the SIDAC authority that was passed in 2013. I had mentioned that the Kenya National Examination Council took the responsibility of assessment in all TVETs, as they were also doing it in the primary and secondary schools. But from 2013, when SIDAC was initiated, SIDAC has a responsibility of assessment. So if you go to TVETs even today, you'll find the two bodies conducting assessment. But the programs that were being assessed by Kenya National Examination Council are coming to an end in 1 or 2 years from now. So with time, we are going to see Kenya National Examination Council being phased off completely and SIDAC taking over fully the responsibility of assessing in TVETs. Then in 2018, we had the National Treasury allocating extra funds to TVETs so that they can support the trainees in their fee payment. And this did wonders because we have seen, as a result of the boost, more trainees joining TVETs because of the subsidized fee payment. Then the Kenya National Qualification Framework was passed in 2014, and this gave a guidelines on how these trainees, after their programs, they can transit to higher levels of training. And like I mentioned, previously it was not the case, but now there's a very clear framework on how progression can be attained. Then during the COVID time, 2020, UNESCO initiated the digitalization of TVET skills system to ensure that TVET training continued even with the pandemic. And this did not end with 2020, it continued so that quite a number of these institutions could benefit out of this. But somehow, for whatever reason, after COVID was over and we resumed our normal processes and systems running, many institutions reverted back to face-to-face training. Then we have the TVET Strategic Plan 2023 to 2027. The government is initiating all this and through the Ministry of Education to ensure that there is a blueprint that is guiding the training of TVETs and the targets that are to be achieved. So to train more trainers, ensure that these institutions have the resources they require, the assessment that is to be done, the SIDAC Strategic Plan 2023-2027, and that's why the phasing of Kenya National Examination Council has been gradual, and it was not a one-off thing, because they also need to put systems in place to align with what is required as far as competency-based education training is concerned. Then we have the bottom-up transformation plan that the current government has to ensure that youths acquire skills that are relevant to the job market, they get employment, and above all the other things, they also acquire digital skills. Then we have the 2023 model gender mainstreaming policy for TVET sector. This policy was passed because all along, history is written that TVET programs have a tendency of attracting more males than females. Although again, it also depends with the program they are taking, but most of those programs, engineering, agriculture, building technology, and automotive engineering, you find they mostly attracted more males than females. So it's also good to follow up on how this policy has been implemented and whether it has achieved something. In 2021 sessional paper, this was a guideline for implementing recognition for prior learning. And it makes the whole difference that there are those citizens who will acquire skills and competences from the workplace, even without going to the technical institutions. So can they be certified if they can prove that they already have the competencies that they claim to have? And because this has already been streamlined and it is being initiated in the institutions, we hope that that will also minimize the number of people who cannot be engaged simply because they cannot prove that they are actually certified or they have a qualification towards what they claim they can manage to offer in a work environment. Then the 2023 Presidential Working Party also was tasked to look at how the education sector was performing. This is after the transition from the 844 system to the competency-based education system. A number of issues were coming up, and so this presidential party was to look at many issues in the education sector, one of them being the place for the TVETs. And they came up with recommendations in line with the TVETs, the resources that the TVETs have, the number of TVETs. They propose that there is need to increase them. There is need to improve on the resources, including the human resources, need to relook at the curriculum in terms of what is being taught, obsoleteness of the curricula, and many other issues that they raised. So out of that policy, then there was the sessional paper number 1, 2024. And this paper was basically speaking to what had been proposed in the Presidential Working Party on educational reforms. And they wanted to see TVETs from a lens of TVETs being research institutions, and these research institutions are being used to enhance training and sustainability in terms of Kenyan development. Then we have the Jitume project and the Konza Digital Skills Laboratory, which we have a lens. Looking at it, we see the Silicon Valley of Kenya in terms of what it can offer. And this generosity is being extended to the TVETs. And some of the TVETs have benefited from this project. They have the equipment that they require for trainees to be exposed to digital skills. And the essence of this was to ensure that the youths can be equipped with digital skills so that they are competitive in the digital space. Because we are looking at a scenario where by 2050, over 2 million jobs will be in the digital space. So how are we positioning these youths to those jobs, for those jobs? Then we have the National E-Learning Portal for TVETs and also the M-Learning. And these two are meant to increase the access of TVET training so that a trainee can they can access training through their mobile phones, their laptops, wherever they are. But I may not have the authority to comment on the success of this. Probably it's something that may require to be followed up. So that is all the literature that I did. And I also reviewed the TVETA website. For me to get to know which institutions are offering agriculture programs, I had to review these two websites, the TVETA website. And from the TVETA website, by the time I did I was doing my literature review and data collection, it had accredited 12 national polytechnics, 1,232 technical and vocational training institutions, and also 1,086. That was the data as then. That was March and August. But when I was doing this write-up, I logged back again on the 10th of September, and I noticed they had updated their website, and now we are at 30 national polytechnics. The technical vocational colleges have also increased, and the number of accredited vocational training centers have also gone higher. However, from the TVET website, I could not tell how many trainers are in each of the institutions, especially those that are teaching agriculture, because the way they provide the data, it is all trainers per county. So it's difficult to screen who is who. And therefore, I had to go to the institutions in person and get that data. For the programs that these institutions offer, again, I couldn't really fetch them from the TVET website. So I had to log into the CUSIP's website and see the programs that institutions have uploaded to CUSIP's for them to be allocated trainers. So it was a bit, a lot of work, but I didn't have an option. So TVETs in Kenya are categorized into 3 levels, as is in the TVET website. We have those that are national polytechnics, we have the technical and vocational colleges, and we have the vocational training colleges. What is different? How do they differ? The national polytechnics and the TVCs are owned by the government. But among the TVCs, there are some that are owned by churches or ministries or different organizations. However, the VTCs are majorly run by the county governments, and that's why you'll find they offer all sorts of programs. The funding is also different. The national polytechnics receive their funding from the national government, the TVCs as well, but the VTCs receive most of their funding from the county government. So from these websites, the data that I collected was as indicated here. Nakuru County had a total of 139 institutions, and these 139 institutions cut across the national, the technical and vocational, and the vocational training centers. Nyandarua had 26 and Kakamega had 90. But however, my focus was those that are offering agriculture programs. And from Nakuru, only 3 institutions were offering agriculture programs. In Nyandarua, only 1 was offering, and in Kakamega, only 6 were offering. Then from those institutions, I looked at the kind of programs, the level of training they offer for these programs. And we had diploma, we had certificate, we had ATSAN. Diploma, according to the ICENT categorization, they refer to it as level 6. Certificate is level 4, ATSAN is level 3. And so I looked at these programs, again, the number that is offered per institution, and I had a total of 29 programs across the 3 counties from the 10 institutions. And so that is what those are the institutions where I sampled my trainers and my trainees for the surveys. So out of it, the data here, the agriculture programs per county, we had Nakuru that had the highest number of programs that they offered, followed by Nyandarua, and lastly by Kakamega. But at the same time, when you look at the agricultural programs that were offered, we had Kakamega offering, Kakamega had the highest number of programs, and so they had the highest number of courses. And when I talk of courses here, I could be having one program that is offered at the 3 levels. It could be general agriculture, but the institution is offering general agriculture at diploma level, general agriculture at certificate level, and general agriculture at ATSAN level. So you'll find there are 3, it's one program, but it is being offered as different courses because of the different levels that they are training at. And so the data was as presented here. We are seeing a scenario where the number of diploma courses offered is higher and highest in Kakamega compared to the rest of the institutions. Then I looked at the enrollment trends in agriculture, and since 2017 to 2022 in these institutions, the enrollment trend is gradually increasing. But comparing to the overall trend of enrollment, you notice that agriculture programs are generally very low enrollment. The color that looks, that one. I looked at gender enrollment again in these ag programs, and the national polytechnics taking the huge chunk of trainees. Most of the trainees in most of the programs in national polytechnics are dominated by the male trainees. So still we are talking of gender disparity when it comes to selection of ag programs. But in the vocational and technical institutions, we had an almost equal number of male-female trainees in those institutions. However, when it came to the trainers, we had a male dominance in terms of the trainers in these institutions across all levels, national polytechnics, the TVETs, and the VTCs. I sought to find out what has really changed, because it's always good to appreciate whatever little change that emanates from a process that has taken a long time to realize a change. I wanted to understand why there is that almost equal representation in terms of gender in the VTCs and the technical vocational institutions. And in the focus group discussion, it came out clear that those institutions that were set up in the densely populated places like Nyandarua, they were conducting campaigns, awareness and campaigns in secondary schools. When students are in Form 3 and Form 4, they would visit and they would share with them the kind of programs they offer. And they were indicating that out of that, they have seen an influx of trainees wanting to take agriculture programs from the locality. Then some of these institutions had exchange programs where trainees from these institutions were given an opportunity to go to United Kingdoms for internships, and they were indicating that that has also been a motivating factor to attract more trainees to pursue agriculture. And then these that were participating in these internship programs, they were also using them as their champions to create awareness in their former institutions. And then instead of letting these trainees register themselves directly on the TVET website, the institutions were registering them in person. So you find, then you control the options that a trainee has in terms of what diversity is out there. You restrict it specifically to your institution, and that has seen the numbers increase. Again, it's still in terms of enrollment. Despite agriculture having been there for a long time, and a number of TVETs offering it, although there are very few compared to the many that are accredited to train agriculture, then we've seen a notable, in those institutions that I conducted study in, there was a notable enrollment in programs that have been in existence for a long time, and minimal attraction of trainees to enrolling to programs that are newly enrolled. For example, there was huge enrollment across all the TVETs on two programs, agricultural extension program, and there was also a high enrollment in general agriculture program, whether diploma, certificate, or artisan. But entrepreneurship and other programs that have been rolled out recently to align to the job market, they were not getting as much attraction as the others. Then one of the programs recorded the least enrollment across all the TVETs, and that was horticulture. And surprisingly, this is a program that was attracting more internship programs to the foreign countries. So the reason as to why trainees are really not interested or not enrolling for horticulture in these institutions, it's something to really be dug out to understand what the dynamics are. What I'm presenting here is the personal observations that I made when I was collecting data. It's one thing to have policies. It's one thing to have sessional papers. It's one thing to have information presented on our mainstream media. And it's also another thing to look at what really happens on the ground when it comes to implementation of the curriculum in line with what is required in the job market and to make these trainees active participants in the economy. In my first image here, this is one of the institutions where enrollment in one of the programs was high. And so looking at it, you notice the space was not enough for all of them. I mean, they are so overcrowded for a practical hands-on training program. Then down here is another institution where we had challenges with connection, with no internet. And so working with the mobile phones and being able to access it, even to fill the online questionnaire was really a challenge. And if you are curious enough, you notice that some of the trainees did not even have the gadgets. They do not have mobile phones. And that is a reality on the ground. Much as we want them to have the digital skills, then the environment and the resources need to be availed. Then in this institution here, there is a huge building behind them. That huge building is their computer lab. But interestingly, the Wi-Fi is placed in strategic places. We call them the hotspots. So if they want to engage online, we have to get out of the room and go to the hotspots. And the hotspots are also limited. They can only accommodate either 50 trainees at a go, or 100 trainees at a go. So you have to wait until one person slips off, then you can access your Wi-Fi. So those are the real challenges that we're facing. Then on my last image here, the CONSA digital skills, I mentioned that some of the institutions are really benefiting from this. That is very true. I went to this institution. The laboratories are there with the computers, but no internet. Even the signal for our mainstream data providers was very weak, that you have to, I really struggled in this place. And that's why it's always good to bring it out for anyone who is curious to understand that something needs to be done. We need to, if we agree to support institutions in terms of the resources they need, then we have to do it full blast so that there are no hurdles going forward. Despite the hitches here and there, some milestones have been achieved. And the milestones that have been achieved, one is in terms of enrollment. Enrollment has slightly gone higher. We have partnerships. These institutions have partnerships. Some are formal, others are non-formal. There is some slight change in attitude. We are seeing the youths are starting to appreciate enrolling in TVETs, as much as there is that enticement by because of the support. We are seeing them enrolling more. Then there is more funding, lessening on the burden by the parents. Internet connectivity is there. The hotspots are there, as they may have limitations. We have digital infrastructure, though not fully supported. Then the institutions have also increased in their numbers, and we are anticipating a scenario where every county has a national polytechnic and every constituency has a technical vocational training center. We have centers of excellence, we have innovation hubs, and there is recognition of prior learning. Where are the gaps? We still have gaps in terms of agriculture programs. In line with the resources, we do not have sufficient resources in these institutions that can support the entire food system programs. We also challenged in terms of digital technology that are out there that we need to bring to the classroom. And we are also challenged in terms of industry institutional partnerships. How well is the content aligned to the world of work? It's important to appreciate that the national polytechnics indicated an average exposure to this emerging content, matters to do with climate change, environmental conservation, climate smart agriculture, gender inclusion, digital agriculture. They had average coverage of this content, but the vocational training centers had the least in terms of how much they were able to cover in their programs. Alignment with the the industry and labor market. Here I was looking at how often they engage with different stakeholders in the labor market to either attach their trainees or to bring them into the learning environment for either support in one way or another. And the exposure was minimal. And this is an area that really needs to be looked into. This data is worrying, because if these trainees are to acquire the practical skills, then they need the places to be attached to or the places to be engaged in. In terms of digital technology, I looked at the infrastructure that is available and the tools that they have, and it was very clear looking at that graph and the trend that is presented there. Modern technology that is used that would be very good in monitoring climate change and also promoting food systems is least covered and least available in these institutions. Remember, they are recording high presence of computers, but it is unfortunate that in some of the institutions, the computers are there, but they cannot be used. They are not in use for one reason or another. Probably the internet is not there, or power is not adequate or is not available. We have integration of technology, and this technology here, I was very curious, technology that is supporting agriculture. And I did a correlation between the competency and frequency of use of digital devices. And there was a very strong correlation where trainers indicated that they had least competence on this. And when that happens, then it means they will have also very little to pass over or to train on. And therefore, that's a huge gap that needs to be addressed. If we are to prepare trainees that are competent, the trainers must be competent first. In conclusion, there was average content coverage that is relevant to the job market in the programs that are taught in TVETs. Trainers recorded average or poor competence in the use of digital technologies, especially the modern ones, in preparing the trainees for the job market. Then TVET institutions had inadequate digital infrastructure, and this is impeding quality training. And then we still have gender disparity in enrollment of agriculture programs and also among the trainers who are training agricultural programs. A few of the recommendations are to the Ministry of Education and TVETA to promote TVET training, trainer retooling for better implementation of market-aligned curriculum. Then the government needs to revamp more digital infrastructure and internet connectivity to these institutions. The TVET institutions need to formalize most of their partnerships with the industry. Like I mentioned, some are formal, others are informal, and a formal partnership works better for either parties. Then the National Gender and Equality Commission should evaluate the implementation of the gender mainstreaming policy, because it exists in TVETs, to identify areas that may require improvement, because the policy is there, but we still have gender disparities. What is it that needs to be done differently? I acknowledge my mentors, and thank you all for listening to me. Awa, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Shule, for a very exhaustive, interesting presentation. Thank you. And now it's time for questions and comments. You can either type it in the Q&A section or raise your hand. And I think we already have questions, so you can read them if you want me to read the questions too, I can do that, but I think you have access to them. We have 3 questions. One from Solomon. Are you able to comment on the feasibility of a TVET project in Machakos County? Is agriculture-oriented TVETs project a possibility in this county?
Sorry, let me look at it again.
Yeah, it's in the Q&A section.
Yeah. Feasibility of a TVET project in Machakos County. Is agriculture-oriented TVET project a possibility in this county? I believe yes, because the government is giving a lot of attention to TVETs, and even through the county government, I'm sure with dialogue, it is possible to have a project. Then David Lord asks for Dr. Miriam, how has climate change and climate of Kenya had an effect on your training of agriculture in TVETs? Yes, climate change is real, and it is not just for the TVETs. It's across board. Everyone is feeling and experiencing the issues of climate change. But what we encourage is when we implement the agriculture curriculum, we encourage aligning your implementation or what you are covering, what you're teaching with the seasons of the year. So that if you are exposing my trainees to growing of vegetables or growing of annual crops, then we align it to the seasons of the year where we will end up using less resources. Alternatively, the other option we have is to irrigate, but you can be sure water is also a challenge to us in many cases. Then would it be possible to get a list of reference materials that the speaker has mentioned during the presentation? Oh yes, it's possible to share, Solomon. I'll do that definitely. Thank you. Sarah, I'm done with the questions on the chat.
Yeah. Any more questions or comment? Seems I have somebody raise their hands, but
Solomon's hand is up.
go ahead, Solomon. You can unmute.
Sure. Good morning. Good afternoon, Dr. Miriam. Thank you for your presentation. It was really, really educational, and you covered quite a bit of ground. And I'm grateful, learned a lot, and look forward to getting some of the materials that you've referenced in your presentation. I was the one that asked about the feasibility of a TVET project in Machakos. Uh, uh, because I have been approached by a group called Solaris Foundation in Kenya that is thinking about putting together a project to train 50 youth. They have not really specified the focus area of the training. No mention of what that would be, but that would be determined based on the interest of the participants that are recruited once they have been recruited and have expressed an interest. So I'm just uh, curious, knowing what you know, how likely is it to sort of roll out a project like that in Kenya and Machakos County specifically? And what advice would you provide to the folks in Kenya that are planning or are developing this project? Because I don't know if they have done it in the past. This might be sort of their first entree, but the issue is that there are a lot of youth that really need to be enrolled in programs like this for all the reasons that you cited, the lack of employment opportunity, the lack of training, etc. And this could really be a viable way to get youth engaged and youth upskilled. So anyway, I'll stop my comments question here, but just to hear your thoughts and guidance would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Solomon. A good question. Viability of a youth project in Machakos. I would give it a tick, given that Machakos is one of the arid and semi-arid counties, although allow me make this comment, but I would wish we link up later after this, so for further discussion, maybe on what you intend to do. But I'm seeing opportunities in that because one of the points of entry could be the county government. That would be the easiest and the fastest. And depending on the interest of the youths who are being enrolled, then a way forward can be charted. I may not know the team, this team, but I can look at them online if I get the right spellings for the team that is making the request, and then maybe we can chat a way forward after this, if that is okay with you.
Absolutely, and I'm going to put my email address in chat, and happy to introduce you to the group because I think the group could benefit from your wisdom
Okay.
and your guidance as well. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you. Back to the chat. Jonathan is asking, thanks, Miriam. Thank you. What is being done to overcome the challenges TVETs face in Kenya? Thank you, Jonathan, for that question. The challenges being faced in Kenya are enormous, like I presented, and overcoming them is a collective responsibility. The government has really tried coming up with the policies, the policy papers, but seems we are not still getting it right. We are making some progress, but not hitting the nail on the head, because like I gave the context of the computers, it is not enough to place computers in an institution and it is enough. It's not enough. Those trainers need to be trained. Internet needs to be provided. Sufficient source of power needs to be availed. So it's a collective responsibility, and it begins with us who are in research. It begins with the trainers. It begins with the head of those institutions. And also the government has the huge burden to ensure that what they have promised the citizens is achieved. Then I hope I've answered you, Jonathan. Collins says it's a powerful presentation. TVET is a way to go in the wake of transitioning from 844 to CBE. Mainstreaming and embracing agriculture will significantly contribute to ensuring food security. Thank you. Then Awa, would you help me pick out if there are more questions?
You have questions in the Q&A.
Okay. Okay. The wave of genetically modified crops are sweeping across the African continent. The multinational companies are forcing governments, the private local farmers to adopt these types of technology. There are concerns about GMOs around food sovereignty, indigenous technologies, and ecology. How is this subject situated in the practices that you research and work focused? Okay, thank you, Susan, for this question. Matters GMO, matters that is part of the technologies we are seeing. There are new, there's new knowledge, there are new products, there are new technologies out there in the industry, and how do we get them to the learning environment? I think that's what Susan is asking. How is this subject situated in the practices that you research and work are focused? Okay. I've not really engaged from the perspective of the genetically modified crops. If TVETs are engaging in trying out and practicing this, because from part of what the government is looking forward is also seeing TVETs as research institutions. But I do not have much authority to comment on how much research they are doing as of now. And my research has not really focused on GMO crops and their usability. Yes, I know there is quite a lot of pressure for farmers to adopt this, but in Kenya, there has been some resistance. I remember at one point this matter went to the parliament, and still it was not agreed upon. So GMO usage in Kenya could be present, but I really cannot comment to what extent, and I've not really worked with it with the TVETs. Then TVET, Collins says TVET was meant to be hands-on skills, but theoretical approach seems to be overriding. What could be the issue? Thank you, Collins. Your observation is right. One of the issues that I experienced in the field is the matter of the number of trainers who are there, the number of trainees, because in some of the programs, the trainees are so many, the trainers are very few. And so it is really a huge workload for the trainers. It's also attributed to the resources. They do not have the resources that they need to work on this, to really implement hands-on training, and that is an handicap. Then Leo Zulu is a great presentation. Does the problem of youth unemployment of college-trained graduates extend to TVET-trained young people, or TVET more successful in placing? Thank you, Leo, for that question. TVETs are, okay, those that trained through TVETs tend to get work faster, yeah? They'll tend to get places of work, yes. But then the challenge is there has been the bias in terms of the payment. If I got your question right, yes, they tend to get work faster, but there is also the competition from the graduates at the university, because some of the programs cut across. Those that are being trained in the university and those that are being trained in TVETs, they cut across. So there is still a lot of competition. However, we are saying if you want a more hands-on graduate, then you get them from the TVETs, where resources are sufficient for good training.
You have a question in the Q&A from Ayodiji, and he's asking if TVETs are encouraged to form cooperatives.
TVETs are?
If they are encouraged to form cooperatives.
If they are encouraged to form cooperatives.
Yes.
I doubt. I have not heard of them forming cooperatives unless I find out, but I have not heard of TVETs forming cooperatives.
Monica is asking if the curriculum can also be updated to include the current technologies used in farming.
Yes, that's very important that the curriculum be reviewed to cover the new knowledge in the world of work. And that has been the push, because the issue has been for a very long time. TVETs are channeling out graduates who have no idea on what is happening. Actually, when we had the focus group discussions, one of the farmer who employs these graduates was like, I employ them in my farm and I have to train them from the scratch. You know, so what is it that we are training in the TVETs, and what is it that the employers need of these graduates? There has been that mismatch, and it really needs to be worked on. I don't know if I've missed any other, Awa?
I mean, there is a question from Solomon. Solomon, do you want to ask it? I think you're still unmuted.
Doc, Doctor, I don't know which one of the questions was it. I've been putting stuff in chat, so uh, I think my questions have been answered by Dr. Miriam. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Um, yeah, the only, I think, request I made was if the reference materials that were cited could be shared, and that may be something that Dr. Miriam will be able to do, you know, at some point. So look forward to getting that. But I don't have any other questions. I was really pleased with this presentation. Very, very thorough and learned a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think there is one question from Suzanne asking about attempts to decolonize TVET curriculum and pedagogy.
Oh yes, there has been attempts to do that because quite a lot of transformative pedagogy is being advocated for in TVETs, and what really needs to be done for people to change their mindset that things can be done differently is frequent retooling of trainers. Or within this transition period, the challenge we are facing is that trainers were trained on the 844 system, which was purely subject-centered. And now they're expected to transform to competency-based education, and they need a lot of retooling for them to align sufficiently as expected. So yes, decolonization has taken place. They are doing things totally different, and we expect continuous improvement. Thank you, Susan. There's a question by, sorry, so that is Susan. Are there patterns that you've noticed where indigenous knowledge is being leveraged, but between TVETs to make knowledge accessible and relevant to local farmers? A good question, Susan. I've seen this happening, especially during the farm attachments, where institutions send their trainees to the farmers or the industry, and there is the knowledge exchange in terms of what the trainee knows, taking to the farm, what the farmer knows, sharing with the trainees. And at that time, when the trainers visit these trainees for supervision, there is still knowledge exchange. However, I think that's also an area that needs to be enhanced. We need to have a collective pool or sessions that are purely meant to share what is happening among the farmers or the stakeholders that are involved in this sector. Thank you. I take note of that. I don't know if I've missed any other questions, Susan. Awa, sorry.
It seems to me you have answered all the questions. If we don't get any more new question, I think we can stop here for today. Susan raised hand. Okay, let's let Susan. Let's see. Go ahead, Susan.
Hello, yeah, I'm not Susan, I'm Alf Daniels Mabingo. I just wanted to, I don't know why it reads as Susan that side.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Miriam, for that wonderful presentation. Inspiring, thank you.
Thank you, Mabingo.
Solomon, you raise your hand.
Yes. I don't know. Maybe I did not lower my hand from the previous question,
Okay,
but
that's fine.
but you know what? I did ask. I did include one other question anonymously because I didn't want to come across sort of dominating with questions here. But the question was, Dr. Miriam mentioned how other countries were doing well in terms of TVET. Several countries were mentioned, and then of course where Kenya stood relative to these other countries. I was just curious if there was some kind of a consortium of countries, African countries that were involved in working together in TVET, perhaps under IGAD's structure or some other structure, but just curious if there was anything like that. Thank you.
Sorry, I need to get your question clear, Solomon. Was there a consortium?
Yes, my question, Dr. Miriam, was if there was a consortium of countries, the African countries that you mentioned, that some of them are doing well in terms of TVET,
yeah,
and others are sort of catching up, falling behind. So was just curious if there was a consortium of countries that worked together and collaborated, perhaps under IGAD's.
Okay. Thank you, Solomon. Through the literature I've read through, I have not seen a scenario where there was a consortium, whether in the African context or in the other nations. I believe this has been a country-initiated initiative that they have wanted to improve the economy through the use of the TVETs, and therefore they empower the TVETs in the different ways that they have done. And so they've ended up achieving results that can be emulated by other nations that are lagging behind. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, Solomon.
Yes, Doctor. Thank you for the presentation. I'm Solomon Ocho Oburu from Kampala, Uganda.
Yes.
It happens we are two Solomons, and it is possible you could mix up the two.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, I'm from Uganda, I'm a lecturer in history. But my concern is one.
Yes.
You have eloquently presented your work.
Yes.
And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
But there is a tendency for Africans or African countries to adapt new programs, perhaps without understanding the implication 20, 30, maybe 100 years to come. We are a knowledge society, knowledge age, knowledge era. And this requires a lot of research. Not research in skilling or understanding how machines work, but Africa must also go scientific and technological in searching the space, the airspace, the deep space. But now the young people are being diverted to skilling and economic programs to generate wealth. How are we not losing the young brains that could lead Africa to space? Are we not losing the young population that would be scientists? Are we not committing intellectual and scientific genocide in our population in Africa? We can be excited, but I'm not comfortable. Because while Finland, Sweden, USA, China are making new things, not from skilling, that is handwork in schools, what we are teaching here.
Yeah.
But deep research, innovation, creativity, complex thinking systems in schools. It seems we are lacking these things. Are we not being diverted? Thank you, Madam Dr. Shule.
Thank you, Solomon, for that question. I want to believe from what I presented, the milestones achieved, especially in the Kenyan context, speaking so too. These TVETs have, they're meant to initiate centers of excellence, and I know a number of them are already centers of excellence. And they're expected to have innovation hubs and also incubation centers. So I think with these good ideas, if they're actually initiated, then We will not be talking about the loss and the drain of the brains of our young youths. And you can be sure whenever they have this small context within their spaces, you notice a lot of creativity and a lot of innovation among them. I think one of the things that we do not leverage on is the environment and the space to really, for these trainees to really demonstrate what they are capable of. So if that environment could be more conducive, and that's why one of my recommendations is the resources and also the retooling of the trainers, then we would see a difference. If I would share a brief context, hoping I'm not out of time, we've seen some of the TVETs being presented on the national media platform of the innovations that they have done, and looking at the materials they are using, you tell yourself, if these students had a better environment and better resources other than where we are today, then they would be doing greater things. So at least from the personal level, I have seen some changes in some areas in terms of innovation and creativity among them.
I think we can stop here. Thank you so very much for your presentation and for answering the questions. And thank you also to everybody who attended and asked questions, made comment. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Awa, and thank you all the attendees. Thank you for your questions as well.